What does it mean to be a daughter when your father only remembers you when it suits him? Emma stared at the embossed invitation in her hands, the gold foil catching the dim light of her apartment. The words were elegant, almost mocking. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Richard Harper and Cassandra Wells. Her father's name felt like a stranger's, and the day 2 weeks from now burned in her chest. She was 21, and this was his third wedding. The first she'd been too young to remember, the second a blur of forced smiles at 12. This time, he demanded her presence, as if she owed him her blessing. But Emma had made her choice. She wasn't going. Not after 21 years of being an afterthought. Growing up, Emma had learned to live with absence. Richard was a charming man to the world, successful, witty, the kind of person who could light up a room. But to her, he was a ghost. Her earliest memory was at 5, waiting by the window for a promised birthday visit that never came. Her mother, Claire, would make excuses, her voice tight with unspoken pain. "He's busy, sweetheart. Work, you know." But Emma knew. Even then, she felt the weight of being unwanted. By 10, the excuses stopped. Claire raised her alone, working double shifts as a nurse to keep them afloat. Richard sent checks occasionally, but they came with no letters, no calls, no love. Emma learned to stop expecting. High school was where she built her armor. She threw herself into art, her sketches a refuge for emotions too big to speak. Her teachers praised her talent, and her mother framed every piece, no matter how rough. Emma's world was small, but enough until Richard reappeared. She was 16 when he called, his voice warm and unfamiliar, inviting her to his second wedding. "It's a new start, Em," he said, as if she were a friend he'd lost touch with. She went, hoping for something, a connection, an apology. Instead, she got a pat on the shoulder and a distracted smile before he vanished into the crowd of guests. She left early, vowing never to chase him again. Now, at 21, Emma was no longer the hopeful girl. She'd graduated college early, landed a job as a graphic designer, and built a life she was proud of. Her mother was a rock, her friends her chosen family. Richard, though, remained a shadow, surfacing only when he needed to play the part of father. This latest invitation came with a voicemail, his tone firm. "Emma, this is important. I expect you there." Expect. The word grated. He hadn't earned her presence. For 21 years, he'd ignored her existence, her pain, her very being. Why should she celebrate his new life when he'd never cared about hers? The decision wasn't easy. Guilt gnawed at her society's voice, whispering that family, no matter how broken, deserved loyalty. She sat with the invitation for days, tracing its edges, wrestling with the choice. Then came the twist she hadn't expected. A letter tucked in her mailbox, no return address. The handwriting was unfamiliar, shaky, and it began with words that stopped her heart. "I'm your half-sister, Lily." Lily was 17, the daughter of Richard's second wife, a woman Emma barely remembered from that fleeting wedding years ago. The letter was raw, spilling with a story Emma recognized too well. Richard had been just as absent in Lily's life, leaving her mother after a year, leaving Lily to grow up with the same hollow ache Emma knew. But Lily's words carried something else, defiance. She wrote of finding Emma through old family records, of wanting to connect, to build something their father never gave them. "He's getting married again," Lily wrote. "I'm not going. Are you?" Emma's world tilted. She wasn't alone. This stranger, this sister, was a mirror of her own pain, but also a spark of possibility. She called Lily that night, and their conversation stretched for hours. Lily was fiery, quick-witted, a poet who poured her anger into words. They laughed, cried, and shared stories of missed birthdays and empty promises. For the first time, Emma felt seen not by Richard, but by someone tied to him, someone who understood. Lily wasn't just a twist in her story. She was a lifeline. The wedding loomed closer, and Richard's calls grew insistent. "It's a family event, Emma," he said in one message, his voice edged with frustration. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder for who? She wanted to scream. Instead, she wrote him a letter, not the one he'd expect, but one she needed to write for years. She poured out everything. The birthdays he missed, the graduations he skipped, the silence that shaped her. She didn't accuse. She simply told her truth. "I'm not coming," she wrote. "Not because I hate you, but because I've spent 21 years waiting for you to see me. I'm done waiting." She mailed it, feeling a weight lift. But the story didn't end there. Lily suggested they meet, not to dwell on their father, but to reclaim the day. On the wedding date, Emma drove to a small coastal town where Lily lived. They met at a cafe overlooking the ocean, the air salty and sharp. Lily was shorter than Emma expected, with wild curls and a grin that hid her scars. They talked until the sun dipped low, sharing dreams instead of pain. Emma spoke of her art. Lily read her poetry aloud. They weren't fixing the past, but they were building something Nawa bond forged not by Richard's presence, but by his absence. As they walked along the beach, Emma realized this was her rebellion. Not just refusing the wedding, but choosing herself, choosing Lily, choosing a family that didn't demand her to perform. The ocean stretched endless before them, and for the first time, Emma felt free. She thought of her mother, who'd taught her resilience, and of Lily, who'd shown her she wasn't alone. Richard's third wedding would go on without her, but Emma's life wouldn't pause for him anymore. The story of Emma and Lily wasn't about forgiveness or revenge. It was about truth, the messy humankind. Emma didn't hate her father. She simply stopped needing him. And in that choice, she found something better, a sister, a purpose, a voice. The invitation sat in her apartment, unopened now, a relic of a life she'd outgrown. She didn't need his approval to be whole. She never had. Years later, Emma would look back on that day, not the wedding she didn't attend, but the one she chose to live. She and Lily stayed close, their bond a quiet triumph. They'd built something Richard never could, a family that saw each other, not for what they could offer, but for who they were. And in that, Emma found the answer to her own question. Being a daughter didn't mean owing anyone her presence. It meant owning her own story.